Doug, why don't we, that is, conservatives who support the Revolutionary War, see an Antifa riot when we consider the Boston Tea Party? As I consider it more, the events feel very anti-conservative in temperament. This small example has caused me to reevaluate the whole war. Given my current conservative disposition and temperament, if I place myself back in the 18th century, I think I could easily see myself defending England against the protesters. What do you think? Am I getting soft in my old age? Thanks.
Yes, you're getting soft in your old age. But even though you're getting soft in your old age, there's a point there. There's a point there that should be amplified. Mm-hmm. It doesn't apply to the Boston Tea Party, but it does apply. So, for example, I would apply it to the Boston Massacre.
Okay.
Right? And in the Boston Massacre, there was an unruly crowd of patriots that were harassing a British contingent, and violence broke out, and the British soldiers, I forget how many people died, but at least one person died, and the British were charged with murder, or
the soldiers were.
The soldiers were charged with murder, and John Adams defended the British soldiers because the American mob was a hooligan mob, right? And John Adams argued for the British soldiers defending them, and that kind of judicious temperament is the kind of conservative temperament that this guy would want to applaud. I don't think you had the same level of hooliganism with the Boston Tea Party, because the whole issue had to do with the lawfulness of the tax, and what they did when the men dressed up as Indians as a disguise, they boarded the ship, they pitched all the tea overboard, and in order to get the tea, they had to break some locks on the. They damaged the ship in order to get at the tea, and they made a point of paying for the locks. Right. So they were saying it was a precision target. This tea tax is abominable, and we're going after that, but we're not going after the ship owner's private property. Right.
What is the principle then that makes a difference between that lawless mob versus a protest that is riotous, that is somehow in your mind lawful?
So the Tea Party was a coordinated, organized event. It wasn't a mob. Right. The Boston Massacre was a mob. It was just nobody was leading it. Nobody was in charge of it. It was just angry people in the streets. It was like an Antifa rally. And if you had the Boston Tea Party was more of an operation that was coordinated, had leadership, and people who would take responsibility for it. I would say it was closer to a guerrilla operation than a rampaging mob. Mobs are indiscriminate. Mobs loot all the stores.
Yeah.
Right. If you have a BLM protest and then they start looting, they don't make discriminations between black-owned businesses and white-owned. They just start looting.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing is reprehensible when American patriots did it. And there were, in the American War for Independence, there were outrages committed by the Americans at various points and various times. In fact, in pretty much every war, there will be outrages by the good guys. And one of the things that you have to look for is a spirit of discipline where you hold the generals and the leadership, model what has to be done, like John Adams did, or maintain discipline on the army. I think there was an episode where, I forget, two soldiers in Washington's army were looting. I think it was looting. Okay. I forget what it was, something like that. Two soldiers were convicted of looting, and George Washington had them hanged, and then marched the entire army by the bodies. Right.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
I just listened to, it was Yoram Hazony talking about Edmund Burke's reflections on the French Revolution, and he was contrasting the French Revolution with the American War for Independence, and it reminded me a lot of how I think you've used those two in a contrast to explain how the American was not a moment of lawlessness.
No, it was the American War for Independence was a war in which the men who were going to war, let's say they were in a Maryland regiment or a Virginia regiment, they were going to war under the authorities that they'd grown up under. Not only that their grandparents had grown up under. It was a war for independence, not a mobs in the street. The Bastille, the assault on the Bastille in the French Revolution was just lawless. When it descended into the terror, that was the logical stopping point. That's where the logic of revolutionary fervor had to go. The American War for Independence was profoundly conservative, and the French Revolution was profoundly progressive. Yes. The French Revolution was leftist, and the American Revolution was conservative. And we had our elements, like Thomas Paine was in the American Revolution, and he fit right into the French Revolution.
Okay.
So we had those elements here, but they by no stretch were they in charge.